right, there he is, the man, the myth, the legend. How was the mood in the locker room, young man?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a little bit down. Some guys still, you'll hear some guys still joking around, try to get into a good mood after a game. It's kind of like the usual.
Tua.
But
Tua's always Tua's always in a great mood, no matter if he throws 5 interceptions or they lose or he looks like shit. He's like, oh well, guys, I'll do my best for the next time.
I hear you. I hear you. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, yeah, I think they're still trying to find the value in the next 3 games. That's kind of just the message that you're hearing is just everyone, of course, on the outside is going to say, hey, they're eliminated from playoff contention. That's that. But I think the guys are they're competitors. They're just going to go out there to compete, put good football on tape, and that'll be their plan, their goals for the coming 3-game stretch. Now that they are officially out of it.
What did McDaniel say about the clock management, which was all screwed up? And Troy Aikman constantly was making fun of it, like it was a joke that they weren't hurrying up when they needed points, and then they were hurrying up when it was already over. So I'm wondering, what was his answer?
Yeah, he said something about that was a question I asked actually post game. He said something about that doing the math on the end of the game that he knew he would need one onside kick at some point. So, I mean, I'm with you. If you're either hurrying or you're not. So, I got to listen to it again because I didn't really catch exactly what he was trying to say that first time. Is I've got like a million things going. I'm like updating a story. I'm listening to him. I'm thinking of the next question. But
it's funny because before you came on, somebody asked that, and I said it doesn't matter. He'll answer it in an answer that won't give you an answer. It'll just be a long, drawn out thing. And when in the end, you're just going to go, huh? What? Whatever. And that's kind of what's going to end up happening because there's no explanation to it. It's just complete incompetence.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, as far as as I was watching the game, I never even really felt like the Dolphins had a chance to make a comeback. So even as it was going, I was kind of just there, like, oh well, it was already 28-3 in the fourth quarter. Like, you're not coming back.
You weren't pumping hopium.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, because I've got I'm watching the game live in the press box, but then I also have an earpiece to the broadcast. Whenever I can, and then I'm hearing like Troy Aikman is really like getting on the Dolphins over that, and with them scoring twice, then you do have, and then having another possession late, you do have to wonder if they could have pieced that together in a more timely fashion. Yeah, you could have maybe gotten another possession out of it where maybe that last possession you're playing for, you're within one possession at least. So, but it would have taken a lot, obviously, to come back from 28-3 in the fourth quarter. So as it was happening, I was never really thinking like that. But then, you kind of look at the number of possessions and they lost by 2 scores. If they could have manipulated one more, then there might have had something to play for that final drive. But ultimately, the game was lost in those first 3 quarters for sure, and especially that end of first half to start of the second half, that turnaround, and just not handling the elements, not getting the offense going, the tackling in the second half. So many things you could point to.
By the way, follow David on Twitter at David Furones _. David, I've given Tua every break and been very supportive of him and try to understand even some of the situations he's gone through and all that. But it's clear, dude. There's something wrong with him. That hip injury from last year, whatever it was, that interception he threw, he couldn't even really step into it and put more on that throw. His throws have just more air now than they've ever had. There's no juice whatsoever in his throws nowadays. He's not playing with any kind of confidence. I'm looking at a guy right now. This is how disturbing it looks. Physically, he cannot do the job. There's something going on with the kid mentally, psychologically, physically. I'm sure it's a combination of all kinds of things. But right now, he does not look like he's early on in the game. why you weren't really competitive. Like he kept the Saints in the game because he was so mediocre. He has regressed so badly that it looks like he can't even physically do the job anymore.
And of course, in a game like this, then there's always the cold element that people will point to. But we're seeing this whether it's a home game against the Saints when it's like 80 degrees. So it's it's pretty consistent across the board. It's not like we're going from a tremendous game like the type of game that we saw in 2023 or 22 when he had like 6 touchdowns in the comeback against the Ravens at the beginning of the year, and then you just see like a complete drop off when he goes into a cold weather environment somewhere. You name it. Shoot, even that year he went and had a solid game in the snow in Buffalo, and then Josh Allen kind of like outdueled him in that one. But it's really bizarre, and you have to start to think about all those things you're saying is physically, obviously, mentally, when these many poor performances stack up. And I know that, and you got to throw the box score, the stat line away in this one, because you look at a 22 of 28 game, 253, 2 touchdowns. That was all like at the end of the game. The offense didn't even have 100 yards until the early in the fourth quarter. So, I remember like people remember that Green Bay game last year when the offense. I mean, they were like completely annihilated the first 3 quarters or so, and it was very similar to this. Then they score a couple touchdowns late, and the score wasn't as bad, and then to a stat line was something else. So people were like, "Oh no, he did this in the cold." Like no, you need to be able to go from the start and be competitive in this game against. When you're trying to fight for your playoff lives in a nationally televised game against what is a better team than you, and on the road in tough elements. So the Dolphins didn't do that. They couldn't sustain drives. So I don't even look at like the run pass ratio because they just weren't running enough plays in the first half through the third quarter. The first 3 quarters, it was just the Steelers had these long drives. Even when they missed on a third down, they would extend it with a fourth down. And then the Dolphins had all these drives of 4 plays, 3 and out, 5 plays. It was just nothing sustainable, and I think ultimately that's where it started to go wrong.
Yeah, it's and talking to Perk, he thinks that McDaniel will come back next year. I don't understand any of this. I think if you're Stephen Ross, it is horrible PR, and I know that Perk wants the whole house cleaned, but he thinks that the old man is still going to bring him back. And I don't understand any of this, at this point. I don't understand. You have to take the hit on June 1st on Tua. You cannot come back next year with Tua because you can't sell that to your fan base. If you want a new coach, you can't sell that to a new coach. You need to come back with a new coach. You can't sell this fan base to this coach. All this kind of – I just don't understand how the idea is more about completely turning the page and starting fresh than bringing back any of the nightmare pieces from this season. I don't understand
that. I get the same sense as Perk. I do believe that, especially after stacking this win streak of 4 games before this one, and maybe depending on how they finish, but I think that Stephen Ross will view it as a process that got better in the second half of the year, and then that Tua contract will make it an easier decision to just say, all right, that combined with that we found an identity with the run game. This is how it's going to be pitched. That then this is something that we can roll out in 2026 because also Stephen Ross strongly believes and likes Mike McDaniel, and he wants to give him every opportunity.
Every
time the opportunity for
guys say that. Every time one of you guys say that, I throw up in my mouth. Every time one of you guys say that, because
there's an image I don't need.
Yeah, no, well, I don't need the image of Mike McDaniel coming back. I don't need it. Nobody needs it. I don't know where that makes any sense and how the building is giving all the writers the vibe of, no, yeah, they're going to bring him back. They like him. What's there to like? I don't understand. I really don't understand that one. I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, I think from Ross's perspective is he's seeing like Mike McDaniel is obviously a very personable person and character. So I think he enjoys how he collaborates with him, and he's rooting for him. He doesn't want to he's looking for a reason, I think, to stick with him as opposed to looking for a reason to get rid of him. So I think that's just my belief. I'm halfway guessing here. Like I can't read the guy's mind, but that's just what I believe he is seeing and how he's evaluating the situation. Plus, combined with that Tua contract, that it would be a lot easier to just play it out the 2026 year from a salary cap perspective, and then you have that final trial run with the added let's say they extend Devon Achane, and that run game is part of the future identity, and they're sticking with that. They give that all a go from the very start of the season, and then see where that goes. And then I think at that point, especially if you have that out with the Tua contract, then that is also your out, because Mike McDaniel and Tua are tied at the hip. I know we always thought Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer were tied at the hip, and I was like Perkins saying, hey, if one of them goes, they go down together. But that's not, and Perkins waving to me right now because he's heading out. Then now we see Chris Greer has gone, and then Mike McDaniel's staying. So then that's just how I see it playing out. Now it's Mike and Tua tied together at the hip, and then I think it's going to be another trial run in 2026 with the run game. And then that's where it's ultimately like a fork in the road. Which way does this go type of thing?
Well, it could break up because that hip is kind of faulty. You don't want to really be tied to that hip.
Oh, damn. See, I wasn't even thinking of that, man. You're sharp today.
I'm just pointing out that Tua's hip's not a hip you want to be tied to, okay? Because, it's just it's kind of a shady hip. Do you think that hip injury from last year did him damage?
I mean, you got to believe so, and because he's got the history.
Listen, you slept at a Holiday Inn last night. You are now a doctor. Did the injury affect him last night?
I think everything's on the table as far as reasons for this. Yeah, like I go back to the show me the money thing, because there was stuff going on last year too. I mean, I remember all those post game shows we did last year. It was like this. It was instead of 2-7 this year, it was a 2-6 start last year, and then they won some games, and it's really like the same story that we're seeing. I mean, last year it was because Tua also missed games with the concussion deal. He's been healthy as far as like able to play this year. We don't know if something is there affecting him really, but when you watch, like, yeah, you have to feel like.
Does it look like it?
Sometimes it does, yeah. Like certain movements are just different from what you used to see from him. And obviously, like when he was younger, like in college, you saw him scramble. If you turn on the college tape and this and that, and then now, we see it looks slow as hell whenever he's got like a wide open scramble lane that then he's got to decide on a slide or dive. When Patrick Queen is like miles away from him, and then finally like he's gaining on him so fast that he doesn't even pick up what you assume was going to be an easy first down. So yeah, I mean, like I think a lot of his movements are limited at this stage, and then yeah, I know you mentioned the interception. Like okay, like he didn't get his hips into it the same way. I think that was more of like the way he was looking, and then the way he threw it, and not reading where Asante Samuel was, because that throw had no chance whether he put all his hips into it, whether he had a cannon. That was just a bad decision. That ball was never going to make it there anyway. But yeah, I like everything's on the table.
It's crazy, dude. If he anticipates a little bit, he might be able to drop it in between the two guys. But again, he doesn't have, there is no movement there. He looks absolutely stiff the entire time. All right. Don't forget, follow him on Twitter at David Furones _. What do you got going on in the Sentinel so folks can check you out?
Yeah, just wrapping up the game coverage here as the Dolphins were eliminated, and getting some of the team perspective from the locker room, the post game interviews in there, and also writing the Minka Fitzpatrick return. He spoke after the game, and also was hurt in this game, a calf injury. Luckily, it wasn't the Achilles or anything, but Mike McDaniel said he was a little stunned because he had never had a calf injury, so that was a new feeling, new sensation for him. But he didn't go back in, but he was there talking in the locker room after the game. So him handling the emotions of returning to Pittsburgh, you could tell how much he meant to both franchises. Pittsburgh, and how much he means now to the Dolphins, because there are players from both sides coming out on the field to check on him when he went down.
By the way, the Dolphins were playing well in the last month. They were actually running the ball well, which would have gone well in this kind of weather. And how many times do you go to Pittsburgh in December and you're playing a mediocre Pittsburgh team?
Without TJ Watt.
And without TJ Watt. They were mediocre with TJ Watt or without TJ Watt. They were still mediocre. And you couldn't beat a mediocre Pittsburgh team, because I know a couple years from now, if you ever go back there again, it'll probably be a badass Pittsburgh team and you will have no chance at winning. That's the sad part about this. This was kind of set up for them to beat Pittsburgh because they weren't really that good. And you couldn't even take advantage of a sorry Pittsburgh team.
Yeah, it's hard to prognosticate with the Steelers because they are quarterbacked by a 42-year-old right now. So, what's their quarterback going to look like in a few years? And then a lot of the fans over here, they want to get rid of Mike Tomlin, a lot of people here. So, so I don't know if they go down that road, who's going to be coaching the Steelers. I'll tell you what, if the Dolphins job becomes available at the same time that Mike Tomlin becomes available, I would say – fix that mistake from 2007 when the Dolphins didn't hire him back then. I would take him in a heartbeat in that case.
I would not. He's in charge of personnel there. There are no personnel moves made without him. He has built all these rosters, and all these rosters are mediocre. Look at Owens' kid that is inactive. They're a wide receiver. He always has all these troubled wide receivers. They take on all these head cases. I'm telling you, the Mike Tomlin stuff. It was like, this is the line I use. He was called too hip hop then, right? Well, he's too hip hop. He's not hip hop enough now. Okay, he is a old coach, old thinking. His offenses are old. He does not adjust. One of the most electrifying wide receivers was traded off that team and sent to Dallas. And yeah, he's a problem child and all that, but he thrived over there because they have an offense that is built for today's NFL. The Steelers keep running this old-ass offense under this guy, and look at all the quarterbacks that he can't find a quarterback. After he won with Cowher's guys, he never won again. And so he has been exactly just slightly better than what the Dolphins have been lately. You know what he's been? The end of Shula's run. 10 games, get in the playoffs, but really make no impact, get eliminated early, all that, where we got to a point as a fan base that we were saying, oh, listen to this. Shula can only win 10 games and just get into the playoffs. That's how we were towards the end. Like, he just doesn't do enough anymore. And that's where Tomlin is. Tomlin is stuck kind of in that same abyss that he doesn't really advance. And if you look at his offenses, they are not what matches modern-day offenses in today's NFL. You have to change with the times. He refuses to change with the times. And so this is why. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers now he's playing in a more run-oriented type offense, because that's what this guy wants to do, because that's what the division is. Well, guess what? Nobody in that division is winning any titles right now. Why? Because they're not dynamic enough as it is. You know what I'm saying? So you better get dynamic. And he refuses to get dynamic. I don't want any part of Mike Tomlin. That ship sailed, and it's done already. He's kind of set in his ways, and I don't like the ways that he's set in. And all you got to do is look at his results, and he has final say. So if you bring him here, guess who's going to have final say in personnel? Mike Tomlin. No thanks.
Yeah, maybe he's old school hip hop.
Yeah, now
He's still hip hop, but he's old school hip hop.
Now he's old school hip hop. Now he's not hip hop enough that he doesn't change with the times. So he's not hip. So
not hip to the current times. Yeah.
Get the hop out of here. Okay? I don't want anything to do with you. All right, David. Safe travels, my brother. We will catch up during the week.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You got it. And Welt and Rheaume, they got you. Our bookend tackles. The consultation's completely free. If you're dealing with bankruptcy, homeowner property damage, condo damage, criminal defense, business owner claims, commercial litigation, personal injury, the best part is you get to call them, you get to explain your situation, and they'll tell you if you got a case. And if you got a case, you got two guys that are just absolute bulldogs, man. They are left and right tackles. They will protect you. They will take care of you, and they will go after those insurance companies, and you never have to deal with the insurance company. In fact, if you have homeowner property damage or commercial litigation or business owner claims, never call the insurance company. You call Welt and Rheaume first. They send their adjusters, and then they call the insurance company on your behalf. You'll never deal with the insurance company. The only thing you're going to do is pick up a check at Welt and Rheaume. 954-966-4646.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.